Welcome. Discover the power of the collective creativity. Join us on the Creative Catalyst Hive for inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert guidance to unlock your creative potential. Ignite your creativity. Join the Hive. Hey, Danielle, how are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for coming on my channel. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am a mom of three girls. I'm a nana. I'm a wife, and yeah, I'm a stay-at-home. All of those.
Nice. Fabulous. And what is your most creative pursuit currently?
Baking and cooking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How did you fall into this passion of baking and cooking?
When my girls were little, um, I was suffering with anorexia, and I didn't have a very healthy relationship with food. But I knew I wanted to be a positive role model for them. So dinner time was always a time we could come together around food in a healthy way. And we could cook together, we could enjoy each other's company and just talk about the day around it. And so it became a real passionate place to be every evening for me because I loved getting that quality time with my girls. I loved being able to show them a positive example of interacting with food in a healthy manner. And it taught them how to cook for themselves when they grew up.
Fabulous. Can you tell me how did you learn to cook and bake?
I'm self-taught, trial and error. Thankfully, not many errors,
Mhm.
but yeah, just trial and error. I always had an obsession with cooking for other people, but once I got to do it every night for my family, it just really grew from there, where I wanted to do it more and more. And now I'd spend all my time in the kitchen if I could.
Nice. So tell me, how does creativity flow into your baking and cooking?
Well, I get inspiration from other people and things I see on TV and things I hear that people are eating or trying or would like. For example, this last weekend, I had a friend tell me, man, I haven't had an pineapple upside down cake in years, so now my brain right now is currently thinking of a updated recipe that I could make for that person that
Mhm.
would not be exactly what they're expecting, but would still give them that flavor combo that they're looking for.
That's so fun. So tell me, what does creativity mean to you anyway, outside and inside the cooking and baking lane?
Um, it means peace and it means being like comfortable with myself at the same time. I'm a very shy person.
Mhm.
So food allows me to engage with people where I might not otherwise engage with them. Um, I give to my neighbors. I give to people out in society that I may have met but don't really know.
Mhm.
And it just allows me to make them feel like they matter and like I thought of them. And it allows me to engage with them where I otherwise might not have.
Mhm. So that's one way that this creativity has of baking and cooking has allowed you to have a positive impact in the world. Are there any other ways?
With my family, I guess,
Mhm.
with my grandson.
Mhm.
I'm teaching him how to bake and cook, and he is 11 years old and absolutely enjoys it. Enjoys getting to do it with me, enjoys getting to do it now with his mom.
Mhm.
Yeah, my daughters all are good cooks now. And they cook for other people now too. Maybe because they see me doing that. I'm not sure. I can't
Mhm.
take credit for it, but uh, I'd like to think I was a positive role model in that way. So they'll bake for their local person, because they don't all live right close by. So the elderly person that lives by them, or their neighbor who's sick, or I think that has been a positive for me is handing that off and teaching them to be able to do that on their own too.
Yeah, giving back to the world and each other.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So tell me, what is it that sometimes might get in your way of this habit and endeavor of creativity in the kitchen itself?
Hmm. Life just gets in the way of it.
Mhm,
Yeah, just have to do's.
mhm,
I watch my grandson, although my daughters are all grown, they're still all full-time jobs.
mhm,
And I have a husband, a house to take care of, but I try and make it a priority.
mhm,
Um, I think it's so important to have that outlet, um, to just be able to just be focused on something you enjoy and that brings you happiness. And we all, I think, tend to fill all our time with things that are for other people,
mhm,
whether it be working, whether it be taking care of our kids, whether it be helping the person down the street.
mhm,
It's not very often that we have those moments where we just get to do what's in our hearts. So, luckily, being a stay at home everything, I
mhm,
get to have that time where I can make it a priority. But that's the biggest challenge, I think, would be life coming at you. There's always an excuse not to. You have to find the excuse to do it.
mhm. So tell me, out of all the things that you've made creatively, what has been your favorite thing and most meaningful thing?
My daughter's wedding cake. I felt very honored that she asked me. I felt that's quite special.
Mm.
And yeah, so getting to do that was nice.
I bet everybody loved it and it tasted great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. That was the feedback.
So you didn't taste any?
No, I've never eaten a single bite of anything I've made. Cooking I have, but not baking. I'm
Yeah.
not a sweets person, ironically.
But
Uh,
you love it.
I love to bake. I would spend all my time doing it if I could.
Mhm.
Um, but no, I cannot stand sugar
Mhm.
or the sweetness. I'm a savory gal.
Yeah.
But people love baked goods. So that's why I enjoy doing those so much. Because if someone hands you a cupcake, who's not happy?
So true. So true. I'm happy usually.
See?
Yes,
It just brings you happiness.
true. What about regular cooking? Like, what's a go-to family meal that's all-time favorite for your family?
Okay, so in between the prep meeting we did, and now I asked my husband what his favorite meal was that I cook,
Uh-huh.
and he said my French onion chicken. I
Oh,
wouldn't have guessed that, but that was his answer.
yeah.
Um, my kids love anything that I make that's Mexican
Mhm.
flavoring. So roasts or whatever. I do a spicy sausage and linguine that they really enjoy.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're that kind of stuff.
So when your kids were little and you were working still, what was something that you could cook up real quick for our listeners to maybe copycat?
Okay, so I can give you an easy one. I would make the kids Mexican roast. They loved it. Super simple, literally 5 minutes of your time before work and about 10 minutes after. So you get either a chuck roast or a rump roast, about 5 pounds. Just throw it on in the crock pot. You get a packet of taco seasoning, just sprinkle it right on over the top of it. And then you buy a medium, like size jar of paste and just pour it over the top, put it on high for 5 to 6 hours. You can do low, 7 to 8 hours if your shift is that long. And then when you get home, just boil up some rice. You put the rice down on the plate, put the meat over the top of it, cover it, like sprinkle with some cheddar cheese. You're good to go. Your meal is done, and it cleans up so easy too. So that was a win when I was still working.
And none of the kids' favorites. That's awesome.
Yeah, to this day, they ask me to make it for them.
Do they? That's
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah,
It's one of mom's signature recipes.
yeah, yeah.
What about whenever you were learning to cook and to bake? Like, what are some tips and tricks and things that you learned? Like, this goes with this and that goes with this. So, what are some things you learned and how did you learn that information since you were self-taught?
Okay, so that's a big question. As far as like the seasonings and stuff go, how I learned the pairings of those is I would watch shows and I would listen to the dishes that people would make, and not so much for what they were making, but for the flavor profiles.
Hmm.
So, like you wouldn't necessarily associate cumin with Mexican seasonings, right? Unless you've had that. You wouldn't necessarily associate tarragon with African seasonings unless you've had that before. And so hearing it allowed me to know what spices go with what other ones. Because if you've never really used them, you don't know. And often you shy away from them. So I would listen for the ones I didn't know. We all have our staples that we go to, the Italian, the garlic, the onion, but that gets kind of boring after a while.
Hmm.
So I would start listening for the ones I didn't know and how they matched up with the ones that I did know. And as far as like what I really learned was I started making sauces. And sauces are a really great way to figure out flavors because
Hmm.
you can taste as you're cooking,
Hmm.
and it doesn't like cook real quick, so you have time to adjust and figure out, okay, so I put a little of that but now it's a little too sweet, so I want to add a little something to counter that, and you just kind of figure it out as time goes on. Yeah.
That's so neat. That's so neat. So, do you um, have any other tips and tricks for someone who maybe is not currently an avid cook or an avid baker? Obviously, most of us have to survive and we don't want to eat fast food all the time, but do you have any tips or tricks that you would share with the audience?
Yeah, I would say be brave. Don't be afraid to fail. It's food, it's fixable,
Mhm.
it's not life altering, so it's you can just have fun with it. But uh, at least for me, I found I was like nervous to try new things. But that to me is where I have found the most excitement and the most joy when doing it is trying the unknown.
Mhm.
Be adventurous, maybe you hear somebody at the cafeteria at work talking about something they had that weekend, but you've never had that dish. Go home and try and make it,
Mhm.
because you don't know exactly what you're expecting it to taste like. Anything you come up with is going to be wonderful, and you can just build off of that. Don't be afraid to fail is like huge, because life is not always going to be a guarantee, right?
Right.
And this is something, at least for me, that isn't so serious that you can't go, oops, it looks like we're having grilled cheese or maybe
Mhm.
cereal for the kids or
Mhm.
whatever. Obviously, you don't want that. But if it happens, it's not the end. So just don't be afraid to be adventurous. Don't be afraid to fail. Try new things and really like I don't know how to say it. I guess whatever you find your like, so for me, I enjoy Mexican food the most too. So if I'm doing something that I just want to be successful at, I'll start with a dish I'm passionate about that I enjoy, because then you do know what it's supposed to taste like. You do know what it's supposed to look like. You have all those touch points. So make sure you do both, ones that you already know, and then throw in the special new ones that might turn out to be something amazing.
Hmm. I think that's good for life in general, right? Like stick to something consistent that you know is going to set you up for success, but then always try to take, good risk and uh, seeking adventure and making your life flavorful inside the kitchen and outside the kitchen. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
If our listeners wanted to see any of your handiwork in the kitchen, where might they find you?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Danielle Marie Morrison is the name on Instagram. I think it's just Danielle Morrison on Facebook, actually. But I have a public profile. I post food, I post baking, I will usually list all the ingredients I use. I don't ever follow a recipe, so it's hard for me to put exactly the measurements because it's just kind of I eye it.
Mhm.
I don't think I'd know what to do with the recipe. But I try and include, and I can give if somebody was to go on there and want to know the exact recipe, I can give a good guesstimate, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
Then they have to make it their own.
So fun. Well, this has been amazing. I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you and getting to know a little bit about your passion and your family and the impact that you're leaving in the world. Um, I hope that you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Misty. And
Take
thank you
care.
for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye bye. Join the hive where ideas thrive, a buzzing hub of creativity alive. The Creative Catalyst Hive, your guiding light. Ignite your spark, take flight. Thanks for listening with your host, creativity coach, Misty Hummel.